Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrest as the shuttle lurched through the asteroid field's debris, her eyes locked on the holographic display flickering with incoming transmissions. "They're not bluffing," she muttered, her voice steady despite the knot in her gut. The message from the Galactic Council repeated in stark red text: "Surrender all human offspring under 18 for re-education, or face total isolation from the core worlds." Elena's fingers tightened. Her own daughter, Mia, was back on Earth, 9 years old and oblivious to the storm brewing light years away. Beside her, Dr. Raj Patel adjusted his glasses, his cautious nature showing in the way he scrolled through datapads without looking up. "The Council's enforcers are already mobilizing. 3 dreadnoughts en route to Sol System. If we don't respond in 12 hours... He trailed off, the implication hanging like shrapnel. Raj had always been the thinker, the one who mapped risks before charging in, but even he couldn't hide the tremor in his hand. Across the cramped cockpit, Sergeant Kira Voss leaned forward, her witty grin masking the fire in her eyes. 12 hours? That's plenty of time to turn their precious fleet into scrap. We've got the prototypes ready. Those railgun arrays we jury-rigged from mining drones." Kira was the bold one, her scars from frontier skirmishes a testament to her grit, always pushing for the direct hit. She cracked her knuckles, the sound sharp against the hum of engines. Elena shot her a look. "No rash moves, Kira. We're not pirates. We're diplomats turned desperate." But deep down she knew diplomacy had died when the Council deemed human children unstable variables in their perfect utopia. The shuttle banked hard, dodging a tumbling rock the size of a house, and Elena's mind raced to the fallback plan she'd kept buried. The gene weapon prototype Raj had developed in secret, a virus that could rewrite alien DNA at the familial level. It wasn't ready for deployment, but with Earth's future hanging by a thread, hesitation felt like surrender. As the shuttle cleared the field and aligned for the jump to the nearest relay station, an alert blared. Council interceptors on long-range scan, closing fast. "They're on to us," Raj said, his voice pitching up. Elena nodded, flipping switches to engage the stealth cloak. The stars blurred into streaks, but the question burned. How far would humanity go to protect its own? Captain Alara Voss gripped the armrests of her command chair as the bridge shuddered under another volley of plasma fire. Alarms blared, red lights pulsing across the consoles like a frantic heartbeat. "Shields at 40%, her tactical officer Ramirez shouted, his fingers flying over the holographic display. "They're locking on again, evasive maneuvers." She didn't hesitate. "Helm, roll a starboard and dive into that asteroid field. Use the rocks for cover." The USS Vanguard lurched, engines humming with raw power as it plunged toward the jagged cluster of debris floating in the void. Alara's mind raced, piecing together the betrayal that had led them here. The Galactic Council, those self-righteous aliens who'd preached unity for centuries, had turned on humanity overnight. Whispers of protecting the future masked their true intent, sterilizing Earth's colonies to cull the aggressive species. Her own daughter, back on New Terra, was one of the children they'd targeted first. The ship weaved through the asteroids, chunks of ancient rock scraping against the hull with screeching protests. Ilara glanced at her second-in-command, Lieutenant Kai Ren, who manned the weapons station. His calm, analytical eyes, always the cautious one, met hers. "Captain, if we lead them in here, we might trap ourselves. The field's too dense for a clean exit." "Better trapped than dead," she replied, her voice steady despite the knot in her gut. Kai was right. This was a gamble, born of desperation after their initial retreat from the Council's blockade. But humans didn't surrender, not when it came to their kids. Arm the proximity mines. Let's make them regret following. Explosions bloomed behind them as the pursuing Krell destroyers, sleek, predatory vessels of the Council's enforcer race, barreled into the field. One clipped an asteroid, venting atmosphere in a silent plume. Ramirez whooped. Direct hit on their lead ship. "They're scattering." Ilara allowed herself a tight smile, but it faded fast. Scans showed reinforcements warping in from the edge of the system. A full squadron, their signatures unmistakable. The Council wasn't playing. They'd issued the decree hours ago, broadcast across human space. All offspring under 16 to be relocated for re-education. Code for extermination. Ilara's fleet, a ragtag armada of colony defenders, was the only thing standing between them and the inner worlds. "Captain," Kai said, his tone laced with urgency, "we can't take them head on. Our fighters are down to half strength from the ambush at Proxima. We need a plan, something they won't see coming. She nodded, leaning forward. The bridge crew quieted, waiting. Alara Voss wasn't one for speeches, but her crew knew her grit. The woman who'd jury-rigged a failing life support system during the Mars uprising with nothing but scavenged parts and sheer will. We hit their command nexus, she said. The Council's relay station in the Oort cloud. It's lightly guarded, relays all their orders. If we sever that, we buy time. Disrupt their coordination, give our ground teams a shot to evacuate the colonies. Ramirez frowned, wiping sweat from his brow. That's suicide. It's crawling with automated defenses, and it's light years from here. Which is why we won't go in guns blazing. Alara pulled up the schematics on the main view screen, her fingers tracing the station's weak points. We use the field's interference to mask a micro-jump. Infiltrate with a boarding team, small, fast. Plant a virus in their core. Make it look like an internal glitch. Their own paranoia will do the rest. They'll turn on each other, suspecting sabotage from rival factions. Kai's eyes narrowed, processing. He was the witty counterpoint to her bravery, always poking holes with a dry quip. Clever, risky as hell, but clever. Who leads the away team? You? She shot him a look. You and a squad of Marines. I'm needed here. No way she'd leave the bridge, not with the fleet hanging by a thread. But sending Kai felt like sending family. They'd served together since the academy, his caution balancing her fire. As the Vanguard stabilized behind a massive asteroid, the plan took shape. Engineers rerouted power to the jump drive, sparks flying from overloaded panels. Ilara watched the enemy ships regroup on the tactical overlay, their formations tightening like a noose. One wrong move and Earth's children, millions of them, would pay the price. But humans adapted. They innovated. And they'd make the Council bleed for this threat. The micro-jump engaged with a stomach-lurching warp, hurling them toward the cloud's edge. Alarms reset to green for now. Ilara exhaled, the weight of command pressing down. This was just the beginning. The real fight waited in the shadows of the relay. Captain Elias Thorne gripped the armrest of his command chair as the shuttle lurched through the debris field, the viewport alive with jagged remnants of what used to be a Zorathian cruiser. Sparks from a glancing hit danced across the hull, but his pilot, Lena Voss, kept them steady with a series of micro-thrusts that made the ride feel like threading a needle in a storm. We're clear of the kill zone, she said, her voice clipped, eyes fixed on the holographic display. Lena was the cautious one, always calculating odds, but today her hands moved with the precision of someone who'd bet her life on the numbers. Beside him, Dr. Mira Kane hunched over a portable console, her fingers flying across the interface as she decrypted the Council's latest transmission. Mira's wit cut through tension like a laser, sharp, unexpected. But right now her face was a mask of focus, brows furrowed under the dim cabin lights. They didn't just threaten the colonies, she murmured, not looking up. The message specifies targeting the orphanages on Epsilon Prime. Kids, Elias. Unarmed, defenseless kids. The Vexari Council's playing for extinction. Elias felt the rage coil in his gut, hot and familiar. He'd lost his own daughter to a border skirmish years ago, a fact he buried deep, but it fueled him now. The Council, those bloated, tentacled bureaucrats from a dozen worlds, had finally crossed the line. Their ultimatum was clear: surrender Earth's terraforming tech or watch their youngest generation burn. No more half measures. Humanity's response had been swift, surgical strikes on their outposts, but this was personal. How many ships do they have en route? He asked, leaning forward. 3 dreadnoughts confirmed, Mira replied, swiping to pull up a star map dotted with red icons. But their real weapon's the bioweapon payload. Engineered virus tailored to human DNA. If it hits those stations... She trailed off, the implication hanging heavy. The shuttle banked hard, dodging a tumbling chunk of alloy that spun lazily in the void. Lena swore under her breath. Incoming interceptors, 2, closing fast from Sector 7. Her hands danced over the controls, evasive maneuvers kicking in with a whine of engines. Elias unstrapped, moving to the tactical station where Sergeant Raj Patel already waited, his massive frame dwarfing the console. Raj was the brave heart of the team, the one who charged when others hesitated, his scarred face a testament to too many close calls. Arm the countermeasures, Elias ordered. Raj nodded, slamming the release. Flares burst from the shuttle's underbelly, blooming like false stars to confuse the enemy sensors. The interceptors veered, one clipping a flare and erupting in a silent fireball. The other pressed on, lasers stitching the darkness. Mira's console beeped urgently. I've got a backdoor into their comms net. Uploading the virus countermeasure now. Our engineered phage should neutralize it mid-transmission if we can bounce it through their relays. Her voice held that edge of triumph, the clever spark that had saved their skins more than once. But the plan hit a snag as the shuttle shuddered under direct fire. Alarms wailed, red lights flashing across the cabin. Shields at 40%, Lena reported, sweat beading on her forehead. They're adapting, jamming our outbound signal. Raj growled, loading a railgun charge. Let me take the turret. By Mira time. Elias gave the nod and Raj bolted to the dorsal mount, the hatch sealing behind him with a hiss. Through the internal feed, Elias watched the sergeant unleash hell. Hypervelocity rounds punching through the interceptor's shields, shearing off a wing. The alien craft spiraled, engines flaring out in a plume of plasma. Signals through, Mira exclaimed, slumping back as the upload completed. Their bioweapons crippled, won't deploy for at least 12 hours. But the victory tasted bittersweet. The map updated. The dreadnoughts were accelerating, their course locked on Epsilon Prime. And worse, a new alert pinged. Council reinforcements mobilizing from the core worlds. Elias stared at the stars streaking past, the weight of what came next settling in. They'd bought time, but the Council's bloodlines, those ancient inbred houses pulling the strings, were now fair game. Humanity wouldn't stop at defense. Plot a course for the relay station, he said, voice steady. We hit them where it hurts. End this before it reaches the kids. Lena adjusted the trajectory, the shuttle surging forward into the black. Raj returned, clapping Elias on the shoulder, his grin fierce. One down. Who's next? Mira met Elias's gaze, her eyes hard. The Council's archives. If we corrupt their genetic vaults, no more heirs, no more threats born from their poison. The team fell silent, the hum of the engines underscoring the resolve. Outside, the debris field thinned, giving way to open space and the looming shadow of war. They were 4 against an empire, but grit had a way of tipping scales. Elias clenched his fist, the image of those threatened children burning in his mind. This wasn't just survival. It was retribution. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the bulkhead as the shuttle shuddered through the asteroid field's debris. Alarms blared in the cockpit, red light strobing across her face. Hold her steady, Reyes, she barked, her voice cutting through the whine of straining engines. Private Thomas Reyes, sweat beading on his brow, wrestled the controls. His fingers danced over the console, rerouting power from life support to thrusters. They're locking on. Missiles inbound, evasive pattern delta. The shuttle bucked, a chunk of rock glancing off the hull with a metallic screech. Behind them, in the cramped hold, Dr. Lila Chen monitored the hacked signal from the Council's outpost. Her tablet flickered with intercepted data streams, lines of alien code scrolling like frantic insects. The children's pod is in Sector 7, but security's tighter than we thought. Drones everywhere. She glanced up, her cautious eyes meeting Elena's through the open hatch. If we dock now, we're sitting ducks. Elena nodded, her brave resolve stealing her features. She'd led worse ops on Earth's forgotten battlefields, but this, rescuing the 40 kids the Vexari Council had snatched as leverage against human expansion, hit different. Those were her people's future, not bargaining chips. We adapt. Reyes, skim the rocks, draw their fire. Chen, prep the breaching charges. We're going in hot. The shuttle dove, engines roaring as it threaded between tumbling boulders. A missile streaked past, exploding against a distant asteroid in a bloom of fire and dust. Reyes whooped, his witty grin flashing despite the chaos. Ha, eat vacuum, you squid-faced bastards. But his triumph faded as the proximity alert screamed. Another volley closing fast. Elena unstrapped, grabbing her pulse rifle. The plan had been simple. Slip in under stealth, extract the pod, slip out. But the Council's patrols had tripled since their intel, turning the field into a kill zone. Now with shields at 20%, stealth was a joke. Abort docking, she decided, slamming the comm. Team, suits up. We're EVA to the outpost. Chen hesitated, her fingers pausing on the charge detonator. Eva? In the soup? One wrong tether and we're space confetti. But she moved, sealing her helmet with a hiss, her practicality kicking in. Reyes killed the engines, the shuttle spinning lazily into the shadow of a massive rock. They cycled the airlock, the void yawning before them like a predator's maw. Magnetic boots clamped to the hull, Elena led the way, her jetpack's blue flame a brief stutter in the darkness. The outpost loomed, a spiky Vexari station, its tendrils of sensor arrays probing the field. Drones buzzed like angry hornets, their laser sights painting the rocks in fleeting green. "Flank left," Elena whispered over the suit comms. "Reyes, you take the jammers. Chen, cover our 6. They pushed off, bodies twisting in 0G, the cold stars wheeling overhead. A drone veered close, its scan beam sweeping. Elena fired first, a suppressed burst from her rifle vaporizing its core in a silent puff of plasma. But the backfire came swift. The shot lit their position and the field erupted. Drones swarmed, missiles arcing from the outpost's bays. Reyes cursed, deploying his jammer pack. It hummed to life, scrambling half the flock into collisions. Yet one broke through, raking Chen's arm with a grazing shot. She spun, pain lancing through her suit's readouts, but clamped it down, returning fire with steady precision. Elena reached the outpost's airlock first, slamming the breaching charge home. It bloomed inward, a controlled inferno peeling back the alloy. "Inside, move!" They tumbled through, the vacuum giving way to a hiss of atmo. Alarms wailed within, Vexari guards, tentacled horrors in powered armor, converging from the corridors. Reyes sealed the breach behind them, his breath ragged. That was too close. "Plan B already?" Elena shouldered her rifle, eyes scanning the junction. The kids were close, but so was the cost. Chen's wound was bleeding seals and reinforcements would swarm any second. Grit hardened her jaw. They'd come for the children, and damn the bloodlines if it meant ending this threat for good. "Push forward. We end this now." Captain Elena Reyes gripped the console as the shuttle lurched through the debris field, her knuckles white against the worn plasteel. "Hold her steady, Jax," she barked, eyes locked on the flickering sensor readouts. The alien wreckage, shattered hulls from the Council's Vanguard fleet, tumbled lazily in the void, a graveyard of twisted metal that hid their approach to the outer rim station. Jax, her wiry engineer with a perpetual smirk, even in crisis, wrestled the controls. "Steady as she'll go, Cap. That last pulse from their defenses nearly cooked our nav systems." He wiped sweat from his brow, the cabin's emergency lights casting harsh shadows across his grease-streaked face. Behind him, Dr. Mira Voss hunched over a portable analyzer, her cautious fingers dancing across holographic displays, while Lieutenant Kara Singh scanned the perimeter with a rifle slung low, her brave stance unyielding despite the odds. The plan had been simple: slip in under the cover of the battle's aftermath, plant the viral payload in the station's life support, and ghost out before the Council's bioscanners lit up. But nothing stayed simple with the Zephyri. Their threat, against Earth's colonies, demanding the surrender of human young as hostages for compliance, had ignited this shadow war, and now the station loomed ahead, a bulbous fortress pulsing with defensive energy. "Proximity alert," Mira whispered, her voice steady but laced with caution. "They're cycling patrols. If we dock now, we'll trip the outer fields." She adjusted her glasses, the lenses reflecting the chaotic swirl of data. Elena nodded, mind racing. The virus wasn't just code. It was engineered to rewrite Zephyri genetics, targeting their reproductive chains in a way no treaty could forgive. Earth's response: end the threat at its root, bloodlines and all. "Abort the direct approach," Elena decided, her tone clipped. "Jax, plot a vector through the debris. Use the hulks as shields." He grinned faintly, fingers flying. "Aye, Cap. Risky, but I've got a trick with the thrusters." The shuttle banked sharply, engines humming low as they wove between colossal fragments, each near miss sending vibrations through the hull. Kara shifted, her witty edge cutting the tension. "If we pull this off, the Council's envoys will choke on their own venom. Remember that ambassador who called our kids primitive liabilities? This is for them." She chambered around, eyes fierce. But Elena saw the flicker of doubt. Losing the last team to a similar infill had cost them allies, and failure here meant the colony's evacuations would grind to a halt, leaving thousands exposed. A sudden jolt rocked them. Alarms blared. "Incoming scan!" Jax yelled. Mira's analyzer spiked red. "It's adaptive, they're learning our signature." Elena's heart pounded. The early feint, masking as salvage drones, had backfired. The Zephyri had anticipated it, tightening their net. Debris pinged off the shields, and a patrol drone's beam grazed their flank, searing hull plating. "Evade!" Elena commanded. Jax threw the shuttle into a spin, dodging the lock, but the strain showed. Consoles sparked, and Mira's equipment flickered offline for a heartbeat. Kara braced against the bulkhead, firing a countermeasure burst through the ventral port. The drone exploded in a silent bloom of fire, but more signatures bloomed on the sensors. "We're boxed," Mira said softly, recalibrating. "We need an adaptation. Reroute. Power to the cloaking emitters, but it'll drain life support." Elena weighed it. "Suffocate slowly or burn bright." "Do it, Kara. Cover our blind spots." The lieutenant nodded, her movements precise, a testament to the grit that had kept their squad intact through 3 botched ops. As the shuttle dimmed, cloaks engaging in a haze of distorted light, they slipped closer to the station's underbelly, but the cost lingered. A faint hiss from the vent signaled dropping oxygen, and Elena felt the first twinge of hypoxia, a reminder that every clever dodge chipped away at their edge. The Zephyri's bloodlines might end here, but only if they survived the trap snapping shut. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the console edge as the shuttle lurched through the debris field, her knuckles whitening against the worn metal. Alarms blared in staccato bursts, red lights painting the cabin in bloody hues. "Hold her steady, Reyes," she barked, eyes locked on the viewport where shattered hull fragments of the alien frigate spun lazily like forgotten toys. Reyes, her co-pilot and the team's resident tinkerer, wiped sweat from his brow with a grease-streaked forearm. His fingers danced over the controls, rerouting power from non-essentials to the thrusters. "Trying, Cap. That last hit fried the stabilizers. We're dancing on a knife's edge here." The shuttle groaned, a metallic whine echoing through the hull as another chunk of wreckage grazed the wing. In the back, Dr. Liam Hargrove hunched over his makeshift lab station, securing vials of the bioagent they'd salvaged from the Council's outpost. His cautious nature showed in the precise way he strapped everything down, double-checking seals even as the ship bucked. "If we lose this, it's all for nothing," he muttered, more to himself than anyone. The agent was their ace, engineered, virus tailored to the Council's physiology, harmless to humans but devastating to their hybrid bloodlines. Earth's children were safe only if this made it back. The comms crackled to life, Sergeant Kira Novak's voice cutting through the din from the lead fighter. "Vasquez, we've got incoming. 3 Council interceptors closing fast from Sector 7. Your shuttle's the prize, they know what you're carrying." Kira's tone was all grit, no fear. She'd been the one to breach the outpost's defenses earlier, her bravery turning a suicide run into a narrow escape. Elena glanced at the tactical display, the blips converging like predators on a wounded beast. Their early plan had been simple: infiltrate, extract, exfiltrate under cover of the asteroid belt. But the Council's reinforcements had arrived too soon, turning evasion into a desperate sprint. "Novak, draw them off. Buy us time to reach the jump point." She didn't wait for acknowledgement, already plotting the vector on her screen. Reyes cursed under his breath as the shuttle shuddered again, a near miss sending sparks flying from a panel. "Cap, we're venting atmosphere in the cargo bay. If we don't patch it, we'll be sucking vacuum in 10. His wit surfaced even now, a crooked grin flashing. "Unless you fancy a spacewalk without suits." Liam looked up, his face pale but resolute. "I'll handle the patch. Just keep us flying." He grabbed a sealant kit and moved aft, the team's quiet anchor proving his worth in the chaos. No arguments, no hesitation, just action. Outside, the void erupted in laser fire. Kira's fighter weaved through the barrage, her voice steady over the link. "On it! These bastards won't touch your kid's future." An explosion bloomed in the distance, one interceptor turning to slag. But the odds were grim. 2 remained, and the jump point was still minutes away. Elena felt the weight of it all, the Council's ultimatum echoing in her mind, their demand for Earth's youth as tribute to fuel their endless wars. No more. As the shuttle hurtled forward, she keyed the distress beacon, a final gambit to summon any nearby human vessels. The cost was mounting. Lives. Ships. The fragile hope they'd clung to. But surrender wasn't in their blood. Captain Reyes gripped the console as the shuttle shuddered through the debris field, the remnants of the Council's vanguard fleet twinkling like shattered glass against the void. "Status, Lena?" he barked, his voice steady despite the sweat beading on his brow. Engineer Lena Vasquez didn't look up from her flickering holographic display, fingers flying across the patched-together interface. "Shields at 40%, sir. That last plasma burst from their cruiser clipped us good. Propulsion's holding, but if we hit another mine, we're space dust." Her cautious nature showed in the way she double-checked every reading, her dark eyes narrowing at the anomalies. From the co-pilot's seat, Dr. Elias Thorne, the mission's reluctant diplomat, wiped blood from a cut above his eye. "They're not pursuing. Yet. But the signal we intercepted, it's clear. The Council's elder caste is mobilizing their biofleets towards Sol. They think wiping out our young will break us and the human infestation before it spreads." His witty edge had dulled under the strain, but he forced a grim smile. "Idiots. They don't know what parenthood does to us." Reyes nodded, his brave resolve anchoring the cabin's tension. The trio had been handpicked for this covert op. Infiltrate the Council's fringe outpost, sabotage their child-harvesting tech, and buy Earth time. But the plan had backfired spectacularly. Their stealth cloak failed mid-insertion, turning a quiet hack into a firefight that lit up half the sector. Now limping back to the rally point, they carried stolen data crystals pulsing with the Council's genetic kill codes, designed to sterilize entire human generations. A proximity alarm blared, red light strobing. "Incoming," Lena shouted, swiveling her chair. On the view screen, a sleek Council interceptor darted from the shadows, its tendrils uncoiling like living whips, firing erratic energy lances that scorched the shuttle's hull. Reyes yanked the controls, banking hard. The ship groaned, inertial dampeners whining. "Elias, get on the comms. Hail them bluff if you have to. Buy us 30 seconds. Thorne activated the array, his voice projecting calm authority over the static. "This is neutral vessel Delta 7. We're traders damaged in the debris. No affiliation with the Terran Alliance. Request passage." The response crackled back in the Council's sibilant tongue, translated by the AI overlay. "Human vermin. Your scent betrays you. Surrender the crystals or we flay your ship layer by layer." Lena's hands blurred, rerouting power to the aft thrusters. "I've got a workaround, overloading their targeting sensors with our decoy drones. But it'll drain the shields completely." "Do it," Reyes ordered, eyes locked on the interceptor closing fast. One lance grazed the wing, sending sparks cascading across the deck. He felt the vibration in his bones, the real cost hitting home. If they failed here, those crystals were Earth's last hope against the bioplague. Billions of kids' futures snuffed out. The drones launched in a swarm, mimicking the shuttle's signature as they veered into the debris. The interceptor hesitated, tendrils lashing at phantoms, buying precious seconds. Lena whooped as the gap widened. "We're clear for now." But Thorne's face paled at the incoming scan. "They're adapting. And worse, the data shows their main force is accelerating. We've got reinforcements en route to Earth in hours, not days." Reyes set course for the nebula's edge, where the fleet waited. The stakes pressed heavier, a tangible weight. One wrong move and the Council's threat became reality. Yet in the quiet after the alarm's wail, camaraderie flickered. Lena's quick grin, Thorne's nod, Reyes's unyielding grip. They'd adapt or die trying. The nebula loomed, a swirling veil of gas and secrets promising cover but hiding its own perils. Captain Elias Thorne gripped the console as the shuttle bucked against the asteroid's gravitational pull, the engines whining in protest. His gloved hands flew across the controls, rerouting power from life support to thrusters, just enough to nudge them into a stable orbit around the jagged rock. Beside him, Dr. Lena Voss scanned the readouts, her face pale under the flickering emergency lights. "We've got incoming signatures," she said, voice steady despite the sweat beading on her brow. 3 Council interceptors closing fast. They must have pinged our distress beacon." Elias didn't look up, his jaw set in that familiar line of determination that had carried his squad through a dozen skirmishes. "Beacon's offline now. Hold on." He slammed the override and the shuttle lurched forward, scraping against a protruding spire that sent sparks dancing across the viewport. The asteroid field was their only cover, a graveyard of debris from the Council's last orbital purge. But it bought them seconds, not minutes. In the cargo hold behind them, Sergeant Kira Hale checked her rifle's charge for the third time, her witty edge dulled by the grim math of their situation. 2 Marines down from the initial ambush, supplies rationed to last a week if they didn't breathe. "If those bastards board us," she muttered to the empty air, "I'll make sure they regret waking up today." Her caution had kept them alive on the surface raid, spotting the hidden Council patrol before it spotted them. But now, with the kids' colony beacon silent, every delay felt like a betrayal. The first interceptor's beam lanced through the void, grazing the shuttle's flank and shearing off a solar panel in a burst of molten fragments. Alarms blared, red lights pulsing like a heartbeat. Lena patched into the comms, her fingers trembling slightly as she encoded a burst transmission back to the fleet. "Elias, if we don't make it, the data core—" "We make it," he cut in, voice rough but unyielding. He banked hard, weaving through a cluster of tumbling boulders the size of warships. The maneuver was pure instinct, honed from years piloting haulers through Earth's asteroid belts before the war. Humans didn't have the Council's fancy inertial dampeners, but they had grit, and Elias had a trick up his sleeve. Kira burst onto the bridge, mag boots clanging. "Hull breach in Section 3, sealing it now, but we're venting Atmo." She braced against the bulkhead as another jolt rocked them, her eyes flicking to the tactical display. The interceptors were fanning out, their sleek forms cutting elegant arcs through the debris, weapons priming with that telltale blue glow. "What's the play, Cap? We can't outrun them." Elias's mind raced, piecing together the field like a puzzle from his salvage days. The asteroid ahead, riddled with ore veins, unstable from mining ops abandoned decades ago. "We don't run. We lure." He adjusted course, aiming straight for the rock's shadowed crater. Lena's eyes widened in realization. The seismic charges from the hold? But that'll collapse the whole damn thing on us if we're not precise. His grin was feral, the kind that said he'd bet his life on human ingenuity. "Die before. Trust me." Kira prepped the charges, set for a chain reaction. As the shuttle dove into the crater's maw, the lead interceptor fired again, the shot vaporizing a nearby boulder into an expanding cloud of dust. Elias rolled them inverted, the G-forces pressing them into their seats, and fired the auxiliary thrusters in a burst that slung them behind a natural overhang. The Council ships hesitated, sensors probing the sudden silence. Kira worked fast in the hold, wiring the mining charges. Old Earth tech, reliable as gravity. "If this backfires, we're space dust," she called over the intercom, but there was no real fear in her tone, just the spark of camaraderie that bound them. "Wouldn't have it any other way," Elias replied, lining up the shot. He triggered the decoy flares, blooming lights that mimicked their engine signature deeper into the field. The interceptors bit, surging forward and straight into the trap. Lena hit the detonator relay. The asteroid shuddered, cracked spider webbing from the core outward in a symphony of fracturing stone. The overhang gave way first, tons of rock cascading down to crush the lead ship in a silent explosion of debris and plasma. The second interceptor veered, but too late. A secondary blast wave caught it broadside, crumpling its hull like foil. The third ship peeled away, broadcasting a frantic mayday in Council tongue, surrender terms perhaps, or a call for reinforcements. Elias didn't wait. He gunned the engines, emerging from the chaos with the shuttle battered but whole. "Fleet, this is Thorn. We've got the core data, and one less hunter on our tail, but they're onto us now. Send pickup double time." Lena slumped back, exhaling. The victory tasted bittersweet. The colony's children were safe for another day, but the Council's retaliation would be swift, their bloodlines unyielding in pursuit. Elias steered toward the rendezvous point, the stars ahead a promise of more fights to come. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the console edge as the shuttle lurched through the debris field, her knuckles whitening against the worn metal. Alarms blared in staccato bursts, red lights painting the cabin in bloody hues. Beside her, Dr. Marcus Hale muttered calculations under his breath, his fingers flying across a holographic display that flickered like a dying star. "We're clear of the primary blast radius," he said, voice steady despite the sweat beading on his forehead. "But the Council's interceptors are closing. 3 minutes out." She didn't look at him, eyes locked on the viewport where chunks of shattered hull tumbled lazily in the void. The Orion's fall had been their flagship, A human vessel turned to slag by the Council's preemptive strike. Now with the kids, those wide-eyed evacuees from the colony worlds, huddled in the rear compartment, Elena's mission boiled down to one thing: get them to the rally point. No heroics, just survival. But the Council's decree echoed in her mind, their broadcasted ultimatum to cull the human infestation before it spreads. They'd targeted the children first, calling them the seed of rebellion. Options? She barked, throttling the engines to weave through a spinning girder. Marcus glanced back, his cautious nature warring with the fire in his eyes. We could dump the auxiliary power into shields, buy time for a micro-jump. Risky, might fry the core. Or hail the fleet remnants. But if they're listening... He trailed off, the unspoken hanging heavy. Betrayal from within had already cost them the Orion. Elena weighed it, the shuttle groaning under another near miss. The witty engineer Jax piped up from the maintenance nook, his voice crackling over the intercom. Cap, I've got a better idea. Remember that old mod from the Academy sims? We rigged the debris as a chaff cloud laced with our EMP bursts. It'll blind their sensors long enough for us to slip through. She nodded sharply, trusting his ingenuity even as doubt gnawed at her. The plan was clever, born of human grit, but one wrong calculation and they'd join the wreckage. Do it, Marcus, plot the jump on my mark. Jax, make it count. As Jax scrambled, sparks flying from his toolkit, the first interceptor locked on, its warning ping slicing through the comms. Elena's heart pounded, the stakes crystallizing. These kids weren't just cargo. They were Earth's future, the ones the Council sought to erase. Failure meant more than death, it meant surrender. The shuttle shuddered as Jax deployed the chaff, debris exploding outward in a glittering storm. Sensor ghosts multiplied on the display, the interceptors veering wildly. Marcus's hands trembled slightly as he initiated the jump sequence, the stars stretching into hyperspace streaks. But as they punched through, a final alert screamed, structural integrity failing. A glancing hit had breached the hull, and atmosphere whistled from the rear. Elena unstrapped, bolting toward the kids' compartment. Smoke billowed, and little Mia, the bravest of them at 10, clutched her brother's hand, eyes fierce. We made it, right? She asked, voice small but unbreaking. Not yet, Elena replied, sealing the breach with a hasty patch. The cost was already mounting, a flickering life support gauge, the shuttle limping. But in that moment, with the Council's pursuit scattered behind them, she saw the spark. Humanity's refusal to fade quietly. They emerged from the jump near the asteroid belt, the rally point a faint beacon amid the rocks. Marcus patched through to the fleet. Vanguard Actual, this is Echo 7, we have survivors. Priority evacuees aboard. Request docking. Static crackled, then a voice, Captain Reyes, her old mentor, responded, laced with relief and urgency. Echo 7, you're a ghost. Vectors approved. But heads up, the Council's mobilizing their dreadnought. We've got hours, not days. Elena exhaled, steering toward the fleet's shadowy hulks. Jax emerged from the nook, grease-streaked and grinning faintly. Told you it'd work. But next time, let's not cut it so close. She clapped his shoulder, the camaraderie a quiet anchor. The kid stirred, whispers of hope cutting the tension. Yet as the shuttle docked with a metallic clang, Elena knew the real fight was just igniting. The Council's bloodlines ended not with a bang, but with calculated strikes. Humanity's way turning threat to legacy. In the fleet's med bay hours later, Marcus reviewed the damage logs while Elena debriefed Reyes. The children were safe for now, clustered around a viewport watching the stars. But the dreadnought's shadow loomed on scans, its weapons arrays powering up. They won't stop, Reyes said, her brave resolve mirroring Elena's. Not until we're dust. Then we don't let them, Elena countered, mind racing through adaptations. Jax, overhearing, sketched a quick schematic on a datapad, repurposing mining drones as kamikaze swarms. It was risky, untested, but it felt right. Ingenuity over brute force. As the fleet mobilized, tension coiled like a spring. Mia approached Elena, holding a crumpled drawing of a fierce ship battling aliens. For you, she said. So you can win. Elena took it, the weight settling in her chest. The cost of this war was etched in young faces, but so was the triumph. With the dreadnought closing, they launched the drones, a hail of improvised fury. Explosions bloomed silently in the void, the Council's behemoth faltering under the assault. It wasn't over. The retaliation would come swift. But in that earned pushback, Earth's children breathed freer, their bloodlines secured by hands that refused to yield. Captain Reyes gripped the console as the shuttle shuddered through the debris field, her knuckles white against the worn plasteel. "Shields at 40%, she muttered, eyes flicking to the holographic display where jagged remnants of the Council's Vanguard fleet twisted like frozen screams. Beside her, Dr. Lena Voss hunched over her tablet, fingers flying across the interface, rerouting power from non-essentials to keep their cloaking field humming. "We've got incoming signatures, 3 interceptors, closing fast," Voss said, her voice steady despite the sweat beading on her forehead. In the back, Kale, the defected Council navigator with his iridescent scales dulled by stress, traced a route on the secondary screen. "Veerport, human. The gravwell there will mask us if we time it right." The first interceptor's beam lanced out, grazing their aft stabilizers and sending sparks dancing across the bulkhead. Reyes yanked the controls, the shuttle pitching violently as alarms wailed. "Hold on," she barked, her mind racing through the plan they'd scraped together after the last fiasco. The failed boarding of the Council's archive ship that had cost them their engineer and nearly the whole team. No more half measures. This run targeted the heart of their enemy's lineage vault on Epsilon Prime, the frozen vault world where the Council's elite stored their genetic heirs in cryosuspension. Threaten Earth's kids and humanity would burn your future to ash. Voss slammed a fist on her console, overriding the failing shield emitters. Cloaks flickering, 30 seconds tops before they lock on. Kyle's claws clicked urgently. "The well is now, dive!" Reyes complied, the shuttle plummeting toward the swirling anomaly, gravity tugging at their bones like invisible hands. The interceptors veered, their sensors blinded by the distortion. But one fired blind, the shot shearing off a solar panel in a burst of molten fragments. The cabin lights dimmed, emergency reds bathing their faces as the engines groaned under the strain. They burst through the other side, the debris field thinning into the approach vector for Epsilon Prime's orbital ring. "We're ghosts now," Reyes said, exhaling sharply. But Kale shook his head, his multifaceted eyes narrowing. "Not for long. The vault's defenses are automated. Nanite swarms, kinetic barriers. And if the Guardians wake—" He trailed off, the weight of betrayal heavy in his silence. Voss glanced up, her cautious nature warring with the fire in her eyes. "Then we adapt. Like always. Earth's not losing another generation to these bastards." The planet loomed, a icy marble scarred by ancient craters, its ring a glittering noose of defense platforms. Reyes plotted their descent, the shuttle slipping into the shadow of a passing comet fragment. Tension coiled in the air, thick as the frost creeping across the viewport. One wrong move and the Council's bloodlines would remain intact, while humanity's retaliation ended in a frozen grave. But Reyes felt the grit settle in her chest, the same unyielding resolve that had carried them from the Sol skirmishes to this edge of oblivion. They weren't heroes. They were survivors turning threats into endings. As they breached the outer atmosphere, a proximity alert pinged. Not interceptors, but something worse. A patrol drone swarm, awakening from hibernation. Voss cursed under her breath, initiating the virus upload Kale had coded from stolen Council tech. "It's in. Jamming their comms for 2 minutes, make it count." Reyes pushed the throttle, weaving through the first wave of drones that buzzed like angry hornets, their lasers scoring the hull but missing vitals. Kale leaned forward, whispering coordinates that bent the rules of their stolen drive. "They're the vault spire. Land hard, breach fast." The shuttle hit the surface with a bone-jarring crunch, snow exploding around them in a white veil. Reyes was first out, rifle raised against the howling wind, her breath fogging the breather mask. Voss followed, scanner in hand, while Kale sealed the hatch behind them. The spire rose like a jagged tooth from the ice, its barriers shimmering faintly under the virus's assault. But as they advanced, a low hum built, the ground trembling. The Guardians stirring, ancient automatons programmed to protect the frozen futures within. Reyes signaled halt, her witty edge surfacing in the grim moment. "Looks like the Council's nannies don't like uninvited guests." Ready to play? They charged, the first Guardian emerging from a subsurface vent, a hulking construct of alloy and cryofrost, its optics flaring red. Voss fired an EMP pulse from her sidearm, staggering it, but it swung a limb that clipped Kale, sending him sprawling into the snow. "I'm fine," he growled, scrambling up with a defiant glare. Reyes covered him, her shots precise, chipping at joints until the thing toppled in a cascade of ice shards. The barrier ahead flickered, a narrow gap opening like a reluctant mouth. Inside, the vault's corridors stretched in sterile blue glow, cryopods lining the walls like silent sentinels. Each held a scion of the Council's elite. Embryos, children, heirs engineered for power. The air hummed with the soft whir of life support, a mockery of the threats they'd issued against human young. Voss hacked the first terminal, her fingers trembling slightly as data scrolled. Bloodlines from a dozen worlds, all tied to the decree that had sparked this war. Confirmed. Destroying them ends the cycle. No more enforcers bred from this poison. But alarms blared suddenly, the virus faltering under countermeasures. Footsteps echoed, heavy, mechanical, more guardians converging. Kale rigged a charge to the pod array, his scales rippling with urgency. 10 seconds. We go. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrests of her command chair as the Vanguard's bridge shuddered under another barrage of plasma fire. Alarms blared in staccato bursts, red lights painting the faces of her crew in harsh crimson. Evasive pattern Delta, she barked, her voice cutting through the chaos like a knife. Beside her, Lieutenant Raj Patel hunched over his console, fingers flying across holographic displays, rerouting power from non-essential systems to the shields. The alien cruiser loomed on the main view screen, its sleek, iridescent hull scarred from their earlier skirmish but still spitting death. Shields at 40%, Raj reported, sweat beading on his forehead. They're targeting the engines, trying to cripple us before we breach their formation. Elena nodded grimly, her mind racing through the tactical overlays. The Council's Vanguard fleet encircled the nursery world of Epsilon 9, a verdant orb where the last untainted bloodlines of the enemy elite sheltered their young. The threat had started months ago, ultimatums broadcast across the galaxy, demanding Earth's surrender or face the extinction of its colonies. But when holographic feeds showed Council enforcers herding human children into cryopods for re-education, something primal snapped in the Sol Alliance. No more diplomacy, no mercy. Operation Eclipse was born, a surgical strike to end the threat at its root. Now with the Vanguard weaving through debris fields and counterfire, Elena's plan hinged on this moment. Launch the drone swarm. Let them taste our ingenuity. She watched as hundreds of micro-drones ejected from the ventral bays, tiny sparks igniting into a buzzing cloud, engineered in hidden labs back on Mars. Each carried a payload of adaptive nanites, Earth's answer to the Council's superior tech. Not brute force, but clever subversion. The drones latched onto the cruiser's hull, burrowing like digital termites, rewriting shield algorithms from the inside. The enemy ship faltered, its plasma arc sputtering as systems glitched. Direct hit on their command deck, Raj said, a flicker of triumph in his eyes, but Elena knew better than to celebrate. The Council wasn't done. Secondary vessels peeled off, converging on their position with predatory grace. In the dim glow of the auxiliary engineering bay, Dr. Mira Chen sealed the final calibration on the quantum disruptor prototype. Her hands, steady despite the deck's vibrations, adjusted the emitter coils with practiced precision. She'd poured 3 sleepless nights into this device, scavenging parts from salvaged Council wreckage. If this works, she muttered to herself, we rewrite the stars. The door hissed open and Sergeant Kai Ruiz burst in, his armored suit scorched from a boarding skirmish. Doc, we've got incoming boarders, 2 squads breaching the mid-deck. Elena needs that disruptor online now or we're sitting ducks. Mira straightened, wiping grease from her cheek. It's ready, but it needs a clear line of sight to their core ships. Get me to the forward array. Kai hesitated only a second, his cautious nature warring with the urgency, then nodded, hefting his pulse rifle. On you. But if we die, I'm blaming your mad science. They sprinted through flickering corridors, the ship groaning as structural integrity warnings echoed. Kai took point, his brave shots dropping a pair of spindly Council drones that skittered from vents. Mira followed, disruptor slung over her shoulder like a relic from a forgotten war. Wit crept into her thoughts amid the fear. Humans always turning scraps into saviors. Up on the bridge, Elena dodged a sparking console as a bulkhead buckled. Status on the breach? She demanded. Containment holding, Raj replied, but his voice cracked. A viewscreen feed showed Council troops, tall chitinous figures with glowing visors pouring through a rent in the hull. Elena's jaw tightened. These weren't faceless enemies. Intel briefs had humanized them just enough to sting. Families on Epsilon 9 blissfully unaware until eclipse lit the sky. "Divert security teams," she ordered, "and patch me through to Chin." The comms crackled to life. "Mira, talk to me." "Disruptor's hot," Mira's voice came back breathless. "We're en route to the array. Buy us 2 minutes." Elena glanced at the tactical map. The nursery world's defenses were crumbling under the Alliance's feint attacks, but the Council's elite guard held the orbital perimeter. One wrong move and the Bloodlines survived to regroup. "You have one," she said, then cut the line. "Helm full burn toward the flagship. Ram if you have to." The Vanguard surged forward, engines screaming. Raj's drones had bought them a window. The enemy formation fractured, ships colliding in confusion. Elena felt the weight of it all. The children back home safe now only if this succeeded. No speeches, no heroes' ballads. Just grit and the sharp tang of ozone in the air. In the forward array, Mira and Kai arrived amid a hail of debris. Council boarders closed in, their energy lances humming. Kai fired a burst, dropping one, but another slashed his arm, drawing a hiss of pain. "Go," he growled, planting himself as a barrier. Mira hooked the disruptor into the array's power grid, her fingers trembling on the activation sequence. The device whirred to life, a low hum building to a piercing whine. Through the viewport she saw the Council flagship, a behemoth bristling with weapons. "Firing," she whispered. A lance of distorted energy lanced out, invisible to the naked eye but devastating in effect. It struck the flagship's core. Unraveling molecular bonds, Elena gripped the armrest as the shuttle shuddered through the debris field, the remnants of the Council's outer defenses glittering like shattered glass against the void. "Shields at 62%, Marcus called from the engineering console, his fingers dancing over holographic controls. "That last barrage clipped us good, but I've rerouted power from the auxiliary thrusters. We won't fry on re-entry." Kira's voice cut in from the tactical station, sharp and measured. "Incoming signatures, 3 interceptors closing fast." "They're not scanning. They're locking weapons." Her eyes narrowed at the display, the cautious pull of her instincts warring with the fire in her gut. She tapped a sequence, deploying decoy drones that burst into false heat signatures. Buying them seconds. "Push the engines," Elena ordered, her voice steady despite the sweat beading on her brow. The shuttle lurched forward, weaving through a tumbling chunk of alien alloy the size of a skyscraper. These weren't just ships. They were the Council's elite guardians, bioengineered hulls that adapted mid-fight, their bloodlines woven into the very code of their empire. Threatening Earth's children had been their mistake. Now humanity's retaliation burned hot, a fleet of improvised vessels turning the tide. An alarm blared as the lead interceptor fired, plasma bolts streaking past. Marcus swore under his breath, witty edge fraying. "They're learning our patterns. Elena, if we don't shake them, we'll be confetti before we hit Atmo." He slammed a fist on the panel, improvising a burst from the maneuvering jets that spun them sideways, the G-forces pinning them to their seats. Kira fired back, her torpedoes lancing out in a precise arc. One connected, the interceptor blooming into a silent fireball. 2 left, but more are vectoring in from the relay station. The risk gnawed at her. The Council's core world below pulsed with defenses, a hive of spires where their leaders schemed. One wrong move and the fragile alliance of human ships waiting in the outer rings would shatter. Elena unstrapped, moving to the viewport. The planet loomed, its atmosphere a swirling bruise of storms engineered to repel invaders. "Marcus, can you hack their comms? Sow some chaos. Make them think their own are turning." It was a long shot, human grit against their ancient tech, but she'd seen him pull miracles from scrap before. He grinned, the spark returning. "On it." Uploading a virus disguised as a surrender ping. If it takes, their bloodlines will be arguing with themselves. Code streamed across his screen. A clever weave of Earth's adaptive algorithms born from backyard coders and war room hackers. The second interceptor veered, its formation breaking as phantom signals flooded their networks. Kira seized the opening, her shots crumpling its flank. But the third rammed through the drones, weapons priming for a killing blow. The shuttle bucked, sparks flying from a console. "Brace," Elena shouted, grabbing the controls. She rolled them into the debris, the hull groaning as shrapnel pinged off. The interceptor overshot, exposed. Kira's final volley ended it, the explosion lighting the cabin in harsh orange. Panting, they watched the planet swell. "We're through the perimeter," Kira said, relief edged with warning. But the real fight's on the ground. Their archives. That's where the Bloodline Codex hides. Destroy it and their empire crumbles. Elena nodded, the weight of it settling. Children back on Earth safe for now. But this strike carried the cost of lives already lost. No speeches. Just the quiet resolve as the shuttle pierced the clouds, flames licking the hull like a promise kept. The dim glow of the command deck's emergency lights flickered across Captain Elena Vasquez's face as she gripped the console, her knuckles white against the humming metal. Alarms blared in staccato bursts, each one a reminder that the Orion shields were buckling under the Council's relentless barrage. "Status on the retrofits?" she barked, her voice cutting through the chaos like a laser sight. Engineer Tomas Ruiz wiped sweat from his brow, his fingers flying over a jury-rigged panel where human intuition had turned alien tech into something fiercer. "Holding cap. The gravitic amplifiers are sinking, barely. If we push the engines another notch, we might slingshot past their blockade." His eyes, sharp with the cautious precision that had saved their crew a dozen times, darted to the viewport. The Council's fleet loomed like jagged shadows against the nebula's swirl, their dreadnoughts firing plasma lances that scorched the void. Lieutenant Kira Novak, ever the witty spark in the storm, leaned against a bulkhead, her pistol holstered but her mind racing. "Slingshot? That's your plan? Last time we improvised with their junk, we nearly turned the medbay into a sauna." She flashed a grin, but it didn't reach her eyes. The stakes clawed at them all. The Council's ultimatum echoed in their memories. Surrender the colony ships carrying Earth's children, or watch the cradle worlds burn. No negotiations, no mercy, just the cold calculus of an empire that viewed humanity as a weed to be uprooted. Elena straightened, her brave resolve anchoring the team like the ship's keel. "It's our plan now. Thomas, route auxiliary power to the forward arrays. Kira, get the drones prepped for a feint. Make them think we're breaking for the inner system." The deck shuddered as another volley grazed the hull, sparks dancing from a cracked panel. She felt the weight of it, the real cost. Every hit chipped away at their dwindling oxygen reserves. Every delay meant more families on those colony arcs waiting for rescue. Thomas nodded, his movements deliberate, no room for error in the red-lit haze. He patched in the final connections, the hum rising to a growl as human grit fused with captured Council schematics. Amplifiers online. We're ghosts in their sensors for the next 30 seconds if we don't fry the core first. A low vibration built through the deck plates, the Orion groaning like a beast rousing from sleep. Kira activated the drone swarm with a swipe. Tiny fighters bursting from the bays like angry hornets. They streaked toward the dreadnoughts, drawing fire in erratic bursts. "Bait's out. Let's see if these overlords bite." Her voice held that edge of sarcasm, but her hand steadied the controls with unyielding focus. The viewport filled with explosions. Beautiful, fleeting blooms of light that bought them breath. Elena punched the throttle, the ship lurching forward in a curve that defied the physics the Council swore by. Stars blurred into streaks as they skimmed the nebula's edge, the amplifiers warping space just enough to slip the net. But Triumph soured fast. A proximity alert screamed as a lone interceptor broke from the pack, its weapons priming for a killing shot. "Evasive!" she shouted, yanking the yoke. Thomas braced against the console, his caution flaring into action. "Cap, reroute the particle shields. Channel them through the auxiliary vents. It'll blind their targeting for a beat." He slammed the override, blue energy flaring along the hull like veins of lightning. The interceptor's beam sliced past, close enough to heat the outer plating to a cherry glow. Kira whooped, firing a counter volley from the secondary turrets. "Gotcha! Eat vacuum, you tin-plated tyrants." Her shot connected, the enemy craft erupting in a silent fireball that lit the bridge in harsh orange. They cleared the blockade, the Orion hurtling toward the waiting colony fleet. But as the alarms quieted to a murmur, Elena caught her reflection in the viewport, lined with exhaustion, marked by the scar of choices that couldn't be undone. The Council's bloodlines would end not in glory, but in the quiet unraveling of their arrogance, paid for by human lives that might never return. The children were safe for now, but the void whispered of reprisals yet to come. The bridge of the retribution hummed with the low thrum of overtaxed engines, every console flickering under the strain of the final push. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrests of her command chair, her knuckles white against the worn leather, as the view screen blazed with the debris field ahead. Shattered hulls from the Council's vanguard, twisted metal blooming like metallic flowers in the void. "Status on the core breach?" she barked, her voice cutting through the alerts. Lieutenant Marco Reyes, her chief engineer, wiped sweat from his brow, fingers flying over the holographic display. "Holding at 80%, Captain. But if we take another hit like that last one, it'll cascade. We lose the warp matrix and we're sitting ducks for their reinforcements." His eyes, sharp and unyielding, met hers. The same grit that had kept him piecing together the ship's guts during the siege of Vega Prime. From the tactical station, Dr. Aisha Khalid leaned forward, her hijab slightly askew from hours of unrelenting focus. "Incoming signatures, 3 dreadnoughts, closing fast. They're adapting to our jammer, our windows down to minutes." Her words were calm, precise. The wit that once lightened briefings now edged with steel. She didn't need to say it. The Council's fleet had hunted them across sectors, their decree to cull the human threat echoing in every intercepted transmission. But Elena's team had turned desperation into defiance, rigging salvaged alien tech into weapons that bit back. Elena nodded, her mind racing through the contingencies they'd drilled in stolen moments. The plan had been simple at first: infiltrate the Council's Nexus world, upload the virus that would unravel their genetic archives, ending the bloodlines that propagated their endless wars. But betrayal from within, a turncoat advisor who'd sold them out, had forced this gauntlet run, the retribution a lone arrow piercing the heart of their armada. "Reyes, divert auxiliary power to the forward arrays. Khalid, sync the viral payload with the breach protocol. We go in hot." The ship shuddered as plasma bolts grazed the shields, sparks dancing across the bulkheads. Marco cursed under his breath, rerouting flows with hands that trembled only from fatigue, not fear. He'd seen too many crews break. Elena's unyielding resolve, her quiet faith in them, had forged this one into something unbreakable. Power shifted. "Arrays at full, but it'll fry the relays after this shot." Aisha's fingers danced, uploading the final sequence. "Payload armed. If we thread this needle, their archives go dark forever. No more spawning fleets from those cursed vats." Her voice held no triumph yet, just the weight of what it cost. The colonies razed, the children lost to their purges. She'd argued against the bloodline strike at first, her caution a counter to Elena's bravery. But the images of orphaned worlds had hardened her choice. "Fire!" Elena's command was a whip crack. The retribution surged, lances of engineered fury erupting from its prow, slicing through the lead dreadnought's flank. Alarms wailed as return fire hammered home, the deck bucking beneath them. Marco braced, shouting, "Shields at 20, cores spiking." But they held, the ship a comet in the storm, weaving through the wreckage with Aisha's navigational tweaks. Clever overrides born from human intuition, not cold algorithms. The Nexus loomed on the view screen, a colossal orb pulsing with forbidden light, its defenses crumbling under the viral assault. Elena watched as the first cracks spiderwebbed across its surface, the Council's bloodlines, centuries of engineered tyrants, unraveling in digital silence. No speeches, no victory cries. Just the shared exhale as the retribution pulled away, trailing smoke and silence. But the cost lingered. Marco slumped, a console sparking against his arm, the burn already blistering. Aisha's hands stilled, her eyes distant. The archives gone, but so too the chance to salvage any remnant of their foe's knowledge. Elena rose, placing a hand on each shoulder. "We end it here, for the children they couldn't touch." The stars stretched ahead, vast and unforgiving, but their path home clear, scarred but unbroken.